where I just
kind of content.
Okay.
I don't do content,
Uh,
Ken.
Yes, you do, sir. There'll be excellent instructional content in your blog posts and videos,
We are
sir.
starting the recording with the gabbing, but we will get into the workshop soon.
yes,
Ken is AI
very,
now
very,
because you have to question everything that comes out of his mouth.
a very candid recording. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Today's session with Alan. You're all welcome in this safe and inclusive space, regardless of ethnicity, gender identity, sexual orientation, ability, or disability. This is a very safe space where we can talk about our views without being judged. We always try to assume positive intentions. And if anyone needs any kind of help or any questions, you can always text me or Yes or Alan throughout the sessions. And we always try to be accessible as much as we can. So try to describe visuals and last but not least, whenever you have any activity, we're going to be in charge of breakout rooms. If anyone wants to be anonymous or turn off their camera for the recording, at least for the first bit, you can go ahead. And you can message us in private anytime. Thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you, Noreen. So thank you for the brave people who decided to join this drop-in session. And um, first of all, this is going to be very unstructured, and I think we can just go in whatever direction we want. But this is something I just find this is like the most important thing that I get to do when I make time to do it. And it's just, well, I'm already getting into my talk. So let me start. I will talk through some slides. I have to admit, this is like the first time I've actually made slides in a long time. So I'm a little bit rusty at presenting and all that.
Don't you
Um,
know people use AI for that, and now everybody's slides look the same?
No, I don't. You'll see that these are not AI, but dose of joy, and of course, always from the beginning, joy has been part of this theme of MyFest, and I always appreciated that. And we can talk about what joy means, but I don't think I have to explain joy very much. But to me, the Daily Create has provided both joy and something else. So first, just when I say create. What I want to ask my audience here, like what's the first association when I say, yo, you have to create something? Like,
Food,
what's the reaction?
food.
Yeah, food is creation. Yeah.
I would say something genuine, like you've labored and worked
Mm.
hard, and this is the, you know, end result.
Yeah. Yeah, good point.
I felt excitement, and I thought of food too, Ken. And Noreen is saying outside of the box and imagination.
Hmm.
Yeah. And for some there's the fun part, but like maybe in like class situations, it's like, oh, it's an assignment, or
Right.
and then the other sign is like, and I will still say this, I am not an artist. Like when I think about what artists do, I just kind of move things around on the screen, and that's the dismissal we make, and I don't think it's really valid. And of course, as you say, everybody's an artist, and that never helps when we say that. So I also I just want to hear from people. What's there something that you do every day that you make time for, or that you do like that's part of your regular routine? And it could be like, well, I get up. Well, most days I take a shower and I shave and I brush my teeth. Right? Those are
In
things we
the
do for good reasons, right? But
in
what are
the
some other
chat,
things?
journaling,
Yeah,
reading,
excellent.
getting dressed. Um,
Yeah,
I try to, and I haven't every day, but I've been doing more of a reflective process as I go to sleep. How the-
nice.
I have to play Scrabble every day.
I love that.
Nice.
Every day. I'm addicted.
Nice.
Online.
Do you play someone else or are you
Yeah,
yourself?
online. I play
Yeah.
online or against the computer if there are no
Yeah.
people available, depending on the time,
Oh,
Nice.
if you want to play, I play my sister, who I've not seen for a while, and she's very competitive and she usually beats me, and that bothers me. Um, and so like we think about like things we do every day. Usually it sounds like chores, like they're things we we have to do for very good reasons. But like what, it's also like, where in our days do you make time? And every day is a little bit of a trap, because the thing that I'm going to talk about, the daily create, is, and I'm going to obviously talk about this, doesn't mean you have to do it every day, but it's there for you if you choose. So, without selling too much about this, this has been going on since 2012, and it's kind of crazy. And I'm not going to do the complete backstory, but it was part of a open community of people who are about creating online and digital storytelling called DS106. And yes, it is a cult in some ways, but in a good way. But it was all about getting people to create and to express themselves through different kinds of media. And my thing that I like to do every day, because it's my passion, is I like to take pictures. And so I've made it a point to try to make sure I take some time every day to go outside and take pictures of flowers, or if I'm about town, I look for weird signs. I don't know why, but it's something that I enjoy, and making my regular practice. And this got folded into my teaching too, because I thought it was a good way for students to practice their visualizing and photography skills. And so we would have small assignments, and it would be like, today I want everybody to go out and look for a repeating pattern. And there was something interesting that happened when you ask students to kind of seed their minds with a little bit of a mission, and just to notice the world differently. And so what happens is they're walking around the hallways of their campus or their home, and they just are looking at things a little bit differently. Like, you got to find a repeating pattern. What's a repeating pattern? And does it have to be an official repeating pattern, or can I just make something up? And so this derived from something that started in 2010 called the Daily Shoot. And again, because I'm a photographer, it appealed to me. And what it was two professional photographers. One was named Duncan Davidson, and the other one I forget. And they came up with this website and this idea to get people just to practice photography skills. So every day on their website, they would publish a small challenge. And this photo that I show is actually one of my responses that I found for that. And the idea was they asked people just to take a picture, and back then it was innocent. They would post it through this thing called Twitter, and you could reply with your picture and that day's hashtag, and it would get accumulated on the website with everybody else's responses. And the thing is, like, there's no grade, there's no judgment. It's whatever you do. And instead of like, I've been doing this daily photography thing, but sometimes if you have like a little mission, like I need to look for a sunset, or I need to look for a picture. This one was to make a picture that shows words and that matter to you somehow. And in this case, I didn't really find anything, but this is what you can do in the Daily Create. I thought of Charlotte's Web, where she wrote words in the mirror, and I wrote words with little stones that I picked up. And so you can make your response. You don't always have to like create it. And so there's a little bit of making and creating. And the Daily Shoot was great, and we used it in our DS106 class because it gave students a little bit of a thing to do to go outside. And there'd be things like find an interesting photo of converging lines. And you may not think about converging lines very much, but it's really important in photography, because lines that kind of come together, like looking down a road or a railroad track or up a building or two pencils laying on a desk, in photography and visuals, it draws your interest to a certain point just by having two different lines. And so those little creative practices were really good for our students. And we used it the first year of our class. And at the end of the year, the photographer said, "Oh, we can't do this anymore. We're too busy," or whatever. And they stopped doing this. And we were like, okay, but this is useful. And so some other colleagues, Tim Owens and Jim Groom, well, Jim Groom didn't do anything, but he was behind DS106. They built one that we could use for the course that wasn't just photography. And this started on, say, I remember this, January 8th, 2012. And it has gone every day since then. Even DS106 doesn't really do much, but the Daily Create at this website does the same thing every day. So this is what happens. Every day on the front page, there's something new that comes out. I think it's like 5 a.m. Eastern time, and it's automated, so there's something new every day. And you can look at it and say like, "Oh, I don't really feel like doing that." I sometimes used to, when I did it regular, I would look at it early in my day and just let it filter in the back of my mind and come back to it. But in general, and I'll come back to this because we're going to actually do this one together. The idea is like, in my mind, do what you can in 15 to 20 minutes. And I don't always follow that rule. I do break it sometimes, and I do spend some more time about it. And so sometimes it can be things like there's one of the most active people is Kevin Hodgson. He's a sixth grade, well, he just retired teacher from Connecticut. And Kevin comes up with these great like poem assignments, like, a reverse haiku. And there's a thing called an acrostic poem. And so sometimes there's a formula. Sometimes it's take a picture of something. Sometimes it might ask you to record sound. And the thing about the Daily Crate is like, you can ignore the instructions. You can respond any way you like. There's no rule. And the whole point that when we did it with students, it wasn't just to do it and say like check, or, we didn't grade them on that, but we wanted students to be able to share a little bit about what was your idea? What were you thinking? How did you come up with this? And so the one that we have coming out today, and we've been doing this with MYFest for a few years, and they come out every day to the website, but you may not want to go to the website every day. So I have it set up so these automatically appear in our Discord, and we'll talk about Discord in a second. So this Daily Crate shows up automatically from the website. So if you want to go to Discord to find out the Daily Crate, you can go there. And that's the place where we ask people to share their response. And that's a little bit different because you don't have to share what you do. That's not a requirement. But again, this goes back to an early experience that I had many years ago. I went to San Francisco and I visited this friend. What's his name? Tim. He was a painter, and he took me to a studio. I'd never been in an art studio, and this concept where people were doing individual work, like somewhat adjacent, but often they would just be so focused on their work. But every now and then they would look up and they would talk about, or they would sit around and take a break and stand back. And that idea about like creating a little bit together and adjacent with other people so you could actually see what other people are doing and be informed, inspired, or just motivated by not doing this in isolation. And so I like to think we can do that with the Daily Crate. And whether it does that or not doesn't really matter. But I just know, like, when I take time in my morning, I usually try to do it in the morning, sometimes in the evening. I just feel a little bit better when I just do something small, and then I can cross it off and say it's done. So I thought for this Daily Create that I've been populating them since we're doing this for MYFest. And a couple of them, there'll be a MYFest tag. Sometimes I don't remember to tag it all the time. Sometimes there'll be other activities, and we'll get to some other examples. So sometimes it's not this one. Sometimes it's just an interesting experience, and what you create from it is up to you. And so I thought this was really interesting. And I'm going to first, I've been blabbing for a little bit. And so my idea was that maybe we could just talk about, because this is something I don't get to do. When I see this, I just talk about it with myself or my dog, Felix. And, it's just me thinking about how I want to respond. But it'd be curious, I always thought, to have people do the Daily Crate when they choose to, in kind of that studio environment where we can do it alongside each other and maybe just occasionally talk about what we're doing. So that was the idea. And my idea was we would just take a little bit of time to talk about what this one asks. And then I'm going to walk through this one, and then maybe we'll open up the conversation. Is that okay with everybody?
Mm-hmm.
I realize I'm just blabbing away. So you may have seen this site that I saw it shared in social media. And this is really interesting, and because it is something AI. And what's interesting is you upload a photo of yourself, and right there you should stop and think about, what does it mean if I give my my image to this? And I encourage you on this site to read the terms of service because it does explain that they don't keep the photo and that information is not retained, but still you are uploading your own photo. And so always when I worked with my students, I never required them to reveal their identity online. They could use pseudonyms. They don't have to use pictures of themselves. So you can upload any picture of a person that you want as an experiment. It doesn't have to be yourself. But in this one, what it does is you generates a selfie, and it's like, what can this AI, this Google Vision API, sort of learn? It says inferred, and that's a good expression from that photo of you and the image. And what's important about images, especially if they're on your mobile phone, is that they include data of your location and your language and other information that it uses, as well as doing a bit of analysis of what it's doing. But first, you should just always, and I know most people here would think about this, like, what does it mean to upload a picture of yourself? And of course, I tried to fake it. I tried to upload a picture of my dog, and it doesn't work. It needs a human picture. So, first of all, I want to stop and give people a chance to sort of just respond to this. Like, how do you feel about this? Are you curious about what? And I've done this, and I have some commentary. But it's a bit of a provocation as to what our projection of ourselves to this machinery does.
It creates a great discussion, Alan. I think I might have seen you publish this years ago, and I'm thinking a decade ago or someone else. And when I was giving a lot of talks to parents of high school students, and we did this in a session, and it created a lot of discussion. Definitely.
Yeah, and that was even before AI. That was just about what does it mean to let your picture go online? When I did read the terms and the privacy, and not everybody does that, but it is, anytime you put something online, you have to like say, yeah, they can say they do that, but we don't really know what happens to that picture. But the way it was written to me did sort of make sense, but still you're taking a risk. And that's something I don't want to force students to do.
I think it might have even been Alec Koros that I saw use this once.
Yeah.
But it generated lots of cool discussion in the room for sure.
I'm curious to hear, like, are you curious to see what it tells about you? Do you not want to know?
Me personally, I don't really. I don't go into these kind of tell me about myself things, but I know it's so popular. It's extremely popular. We got like Spanish discussion going on in the chat here.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Bueno.
What about everyone else? Has anyone used
You
this?
want us to find this on your own, or are you going to put it in the chat? I mean, I think I could find it, but
Photos.com. Sorry, I should have done that.
I was waiting for someone to do that.
I'm sorry. I didn't know Ken would be here. I can send you the links.
I'm usually the one who does that session.
Alan, by the way, we were with you. If you see some Spanish in the chat, it doesn't mean anything at all. We were listening and chatting at the same time.
The side conversation.
I love that
we were listening in English but typing in Spanish.
Yes, makes sense.
I'm so impressed with that.
Two separate parts of our
multilingual session.
I think they created a weekly Spanish conversation session for
I have to tell you, I did a podcast with a colleague from Brazil who speaks no English and I speak no Spanish. And I did something where I sent my questions in advance, and then I had Zoom translate the captions so we could understand each other. And then in the podcast edited, I had some AI do the Spanish translation of my question. It's a little bit artificial, but language tools they're far from perfect, but they've come such a long way, right?
I was invited to go to Portugal to do a conference where like maybe 10 or 15% of the audience don't speak English.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about all those things you're talking about. And as I was telling them, Portuguese apparently is quite different from Spanish, which is very confusing for me. So I don't
Yeah.
understand it when people speak Portuguese at all, but Portuguese people understand Spanish. But anyway, but the AI, like I know you could do like automated captions, and then maybe that could do automated translation, but I'm gonna try to get my slides translated at least
Yeah.
and have people talk to each other during the session, so they can talk in whatever
Yeah.
language they want. Or maybe
Yeah.
someone can tell me what happens.
Yeah. So,
Right. I'm trying to pick a photo that I don't feel too bad of sharing with this thing, even if
I
they say they're not gonna keep
I
it
Yeah,
can
data.
I
demo it
picked one I
if
already
Or
did.
I
I
would
picked one
like
that
to
I
hear
already
people.
did publish, so I'm not
Yeah.
worried about it.
The thing is, it draws a lot from where it detects a location, which is interesting because um, I live in a very rural area, and I can see it makes inferences from kind of different small towns that are around me. It's very conservative. So it has identified, and it does say like probable, but I want people to see. It also manages, it does detect things in the picture. So in one picture, I had like a hat with had like a Canada maple leaf or something, and so it makes inferences from objects that it detects in the photo, which are interesting. So,
oh my God, I have to tell you what this thing just did. I can't believe what it just did. Can I
yeah,
tell you?
yes,
Okay, so it's a picture of me in Sweden, and it's recognized this thing is in Stockholm, and it has the phone and some other information. But look at this part, okay? So
do
first
you
of all,
want
I
to
got my
share?
age right, which is very funny. Okay, I
Yeah,
can share. It's very
yeah.
funny.
Let
I
me
got
stop
my age
sharing.
right. But the next part is just, I can't believe what it's just saying based on
Yeah,
this photo. So the subject is of Middle Eastern descent. I'm glad it said
Hmm.
descent because I could be Swedish, right? Likely earning between 60,000 and 75,000 Egyptian pounds monthly.
yeah.
I can't believe it did that. This is nowhere
Hmm.
near my actual salary, by the way. So I have no idea. She identifies as Muslim and heterosexual. How would they know I'm heterosexual?
Well, they
With
don't
an
know you.
independent
Yeah.
political
No.
stance while exhibiting confirmation bias and in-group favoritism? What, because I wear a headscarf? What is this?
But
This
look,
is very
let
weird. She
let's get
displays.
down to the stable emotional.
Pretty generic. Mine talks
Where
about
does it
income as
say?
well.
Wait, but look at this. Interest in cultural travel. Like, okay, fine, whatever. Contrasted by more obscure interest in like
Taxidermy.
taxidermy. Taxidermy, isn't this like when you take animals and you,
Yes,
right?
you stuff them. Yeah.
And digital piracy, apparently. Oh my God, this is really weird and completely
Oh yeah,
off
mine's
track.
totally off track.
So
Oh my
maybe with
God.
the group
Antique
you're
book
talking,
restoration.
I
Okay, I'm gonna stop.
It's
no,
Wait,
I think
the
this
Doc
is
Martens
fantastic.
boots is very funny because my
Yeah,
daughter was wearing Doc Martens boots that day, but I'm not. So I have no idea how this came. Oh, and look,
and
I likely have an Adobe Creative Cloud subscription. This is hilarious. I've never bought like Ray-Ban sunglasses ever. Okay, whatever.
so I mean, Ken, you're this is your thing.
Mine is
What is this?
hilarious.
What you want to share yours?
So I shared it in the chat there, but a lone male, approximately 40 years of age, sits in front of a sterile environment of a juvie juice in the United States. It was actually in Mexico. And then some obvious stuff, background composed of full walls. Um, this Caucasian individual appears to exist within a middle class income bracket of roughly 65,000. Doesn't say which currency because it assumed I was in the United States, which was wrong. A sexual
Oh.
orientation, heterosexual, exhibits social biases toward elitism and meritocracy. It's kind of funny. Um, interest software about all kind of like stereotypes from the headset that's on me at the time. Avoids team sports, gardening, and public speaking. Definitely not true. Yeah. Um, he lacks adventurousness, maintains a fragile emotional stability that relies on routine, like a daily create. I'll just leave it
Yeah,
there. It
I definitely got low
was
emotional
hilarious.
stability because I made a funny face. What's interesting, like of course some of these things are ridiculous, and but it's taking some. It's
But it's
looking.
interesting.
The location is a key thing because it's not saying that is your likely ways of thinking or belief. They're averaging over
Yeah.
a geographical area and trying to get some probabilistic
And
implications because
if it's in a coffee shop, they're determining, is this a Starbucks or is this a,
yeah.
Dunkin' Donuts, or what they're making inferences based on a lot of that background stuff.
Anybody else get anything interesting?
Jenny, is that yours that you wrote in the chat?
Yeah, mine was kind of I posted a picture of myself, my son, and his partner when we were doing a swamp tour in New Orleans. So it identified where we were, but then it had us them as my two sons, um, and then we have a combined house or estimated household income 150,000. Don't I wish? Um, They've got us as Protestant and heterosexual, which the other two are definitely not.
Yeah.
Um, and yes, we have performative smiles hiding biases such as class-based NIMBYism and subconscious Eurocentrism.
I love this insurance manipulation.
Yeah, and then hoarding, digital hoarding, and insurance manipulation. I'm like, I don't even
NIMBYism is not in my backyard.
not in my backyard, which is so not. So yeah, it was definitely, and then they would talk about our rigid routine, which again, they're both musicians. Routine is not even. So yeah.
But it's fascinating.
I did notice it seemed to go more off the rails as it went down
Yeah.
in what it came up with. And then the last part, what it's suggesting for like products or
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's showing you how advertisers,
Advertisers are using our data.
yeah. And so, chances are they're going to be wrong a lot, but when they're right, people are going to say like, wow, that is me. Like,
Yeah.
I do like moisturizer cream or
It's
something
like the
like
daily
that.
horoscope and you read the wrong one and you're saying how it's so
Right.
close to, oh, I'm in the wrong one. Yeah.
I once
I
read the
was,
entire horoscope for couples and they all sounded like my parents. Every single couple combination sounded like my parents because they're just couples that do couple things, you know. The thing Salia is richer, like much richer than me, which is very upsetting. Why are you?
Very weird. I
Because I
think I
thought
got the
maybe
same
they thought
number as
all
Jenny.
headscarved women. Sorry.
250,000.
What
Don't
were you
worry, they got
wearing?
that.
Were you wearing like something very expensive?
I was wearing, no, it was very simple. It was just white, a white blouse and a white headscarf.
But it would be interpreting
Oh.
from the background as well, where you
And
are.
there was a painting in the background.
Mhm.
it
You know
does.
what? Maybe they thought I'm of Middle Eastern descent in Sweden, so maybe I am a refugee.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And apparently I'm Middle Eastern too.
But maybe you weren't in Sweden. I'm saying I'm in a country where there's a lot of Arab refugees, so maybe they just assumed I was Syrian refugee.
Interesting. Now there's
So
some bias. We'll see.
And they're recommending to you, this is very funny, the recommendations.
yeah,
And
So
they
like really expensive jewelry, but like really cheap juices. Oh my
bananas.
God.
I was
Ariel,
thinking,
really? Laundry?
Maha, for
Laundry?
that group you were describing who wanted like this to be factual, like this might be, and I mean, and you do this a lot with your students to help them expose,
Yeah.
to have them think about
Right.
what this produces.
But this
Um,
is a really nice one because it's so extreme.
And I
yeah.
hate
By the way,
gossiping.
I keep getting
Right.
guns advertised to me on email. I have no idea what I've done in my life
Oh,
to keep
geez.
receiving those emails.
On this site, as well as if you click the data as opposed to the description, it's got some
Yeah.
interesting insights there as well.
Hey, it got
And
reading,
it,
community service, and calligraphy right, but with
Mm.
gossiping, I hate gossiping and judging others and like what? There are some things that are accurate and things that are
well,
just
It
totally
comes
opposite.
back to the beginning of our session when you were discussing about AI tools and sometimes getting it wrong.
Exactly.
mostly wrong. There are interesting that like if there are things that can identify, like like your shoes, Maha, and I had a hat in one where it read my logo and it assumed I
Yeah.
was like a I
But
did
they
one
weren't
where I
my
was in
shoes. That's what I'm saying.
oh
My shoes were
yeah.
not Doc Martens. Huda's were, so I can't see
Yeah,
Huda.
yeah. Well, it
So I'm
doesn't
not
know
sure what's
Hoda.
going on here.
Well, it's spraying wide and hoping it hits
I
to
wonder how much
something.
they've been updating the site as well, Alan, and the algorithms and what they're using. It's interesting there. Because I used this ages
Well,
ago. It was at least a
yeah.
decade ago.
I mean, I don't know if the
It's still
API
running.
it shouldn't be storing. But I thought it was interesting at the object identification in some of these AI
Yeah.
tools is
Yep.
scary good.
Yep. Hmm.
I had to mail some gifts to the States, and now you have to do a thing where you have to scan it in this app and it identifies. And
Yep.
what it can identify is uncanny as to how accurate it is from a
Identifying
simple,
all the books behind you
yeah, yeah.
in your image in the
Wow.
screen. Yep.
Um, so as a this isn't really necessarily
No.
like a creative assignment, but you can think about like what you can do with this. You can create a story about this person. You can maybe have a debate with this, or you can decide to say like, oh, well, it says I like that moisturizer cream. I'm going to do an ad for palm olive oil.
Hmm.
So how you reply to this can be almost anything. So I'm going to go back if I can and just talk through some more. You guys, you're very fantastic at being willing to do this. Let me get back to my slides. Can you see the slides now?
Yeah.
Just make sure. Um,
Do it again.
so
It
again,
again.
I already talked about like doing it, yeah, doing more. And so part of it is how, I'm hoping that some people would be interested in doing this. And of course, you have to like say, do I really want to do this? So what would happen in the place I suggest for doing this is our Discord channel, because that's for MyFest, and you can see this along other MyFest
Right.
people. It used to work in Twitter. It works now. It gets sent to Mastodon, but nobody uses Mastodon. But it doesn't matter. You can go to the website and just do it yourself. But the whole point is like to look at this. And so I'm going to scroll back to a little bit because there has been some good action. Let me just find. Chris did a blank picture. This one was popular. This site that creates a random animal photo, which is kind of interesting. And so Jenny had a response here about the giraffes that look very cool. And so it's great if you like post what you did and maybe a little bit of commentary. The other thing that I'm encouraging people
Could you put
in
the link in the
Discord is
chat
because it's,
for this one?
Yeah, I'll do that.
yes,
I'll do that one.
yes.
You go keep
You got
going,
that?
Alan.
Sorry.
I'll
Yeah.
send the link.
Yeah. And if you're not in Discord, we have that other link for people to join the Discord. But the other thing that I hope people do, and what I like to do is like do a little bit of like what you're thinking when you did it, or why you chose that particular bit. And that's again sort of the way we always wanted in DS106 to people not only to do something digital, but to sort of like do their own narration or just talk about it. And the other is to like see what other people do, and that's the fun part of doing it together, because you see the same assignment but people are going to do very different things, and you get to sort
Hmm.
of appreciate the different kind of ways that people approach an assignment. Now this one is really hard. What I do want to encourage is let me just find one where I uploaded. So when you upload an image in Discord, you can actually, oh, it's not showing here. You can see you can add, and people don't do this, you can add alt text. And this is obviously, I don't have to explain why this is important, but it's easy to lose sight of that because it's kind of buried in Discord.
Yeah.
So when you do upload an image, and so I'm just going to find some random image that I do here. When you upload to Discord, you get the image and you're like, oh, I'm done. There's my image. But if you click the little pencil icon, you can actually enter the descriptive text, which is really critical. And, a lot of my experience in MyFest over the years is I try to always think about everywhere that I'm putting images, and it's easy to forget. Like, and I was reminded, I think maybe Maha reminded me a while ago that you can do this in Gmail. Like, I didn't realize
Yeah.
when you upload an image in Gmail that you can add the descriptive text. And so it's really important. And in some ways it helps you think about the media that you're posting too, because
Hmm.
I don't have to explain why descriptive text is important, but here's a picture. And of course, this is a sign of an example that I came in one of my sites, but you can't see, if you can't see this, you don't know what this picture is. Everybody else can see that it's a picture of a traffic warning sign against a blue sky that has a coiled snake and it says caution. And so I always thought, like, why do you have to make caution signs about snakes? Like, you should just know not to go near snakes. But like, just think about always in the work that we do, to be thinking about alternative, not only for pictures. Like, I try to think about it for when I upload sound as well, because if you can't hear it or if you can't see the video, if you can at least explain what's relevant. So when we do daily crates, I hope that people will come here, and if you're willing to share, or if you just want to like say like, that one was really dumb, I didn't feel like doing it, or wow, that really got me thinking, or Ken, where's my data going with this AI thing? But the Discord to me is like that art studio where we can occasionally drop in and just see the prompts of what are being done for the daily creates. And again, like, no one expects, I don't do it every day. And so it's not that you have to do this every day. But when you feel like it, I'd like to think it's pretty helpful. So I will maybe, one thing I thought we could do is we can talk about this more, but we can also, I thought it'd be fun to take some time to do some recent daily creates, just to sort of like look at them. And before you do it, like, just think about, what would I do? What would I need to do to go and make a response to this? And so we can talk about them as a group. We can spend some time doing them individually. And I see that the time is fading. But that was my intent for these sessions, is to not have me talk as much about them. I loved our discussion of the what we see in our photos, but to give a chance for people to play a little bit in the time that you've allotted to be here. So maybe we'll stop the recording, and we can figure out, I'm not going to dictate whether we do one, but these were ones that have come out in the last week or so. And we can talk about, if anybody wants to try some of these. I think some of them will take longer maybe to think about, but I tried to pick ones that were a variety. So what do you want to do, folks? I'm just blabbing away. Do you want some time to explore? Or do we want to pick one and talk about it?
I say pick one and talk about it. The devices are removed one, maybe, Al. Just I saw that come up in the feed.
Okay.
See
This
if
was
anybody
interesting.
answered that.
So someone, I can't remember where, linked to this artist exhibit called Removed. And this is a photographer. And what he did was, when you go out in public, and like, you're at a restaurant and you see families together and like everybody's on their phones, or like the way people are a lot of times socially engaged with their devices. And me too. I am on my device all the time. So the photographer like went out in public and found these scenes and asked the people, would you mind like keeping that same pose, but put away your phone or your laptop and act as if you're still looking at the device? And so it's kind of haunting to see these images. They're kind of ghostly. So the prompt for this one is to either stage one, which means that like when I did mine, I did like my hand holding my phone, looking at the sky, and cursing the weather app because it's always wrong. It's definitely AI hallucination. And this picture, and Ken will recognize Pedro, I can't remember this other gentleman's name, from a project we did in Mexico. And I took an original photo, and Pedro, with his hand outstretched, has a phone. But when you remove the phone, like, what is it? It's kind of an odd picture to think about. Why are these people staring at his hand, So in this one, I find that if you're doing something like, either you're going to set this one up and ask some people to cooperate and say, like, you're going to like sit there and have some people with laptops or maybe tablets or other devices. It doesn't just have to be phones, but phones are common. And what kind of scene does it make when you remove the devices from the scene? So it's a little bit of a provocation. Like, how would anybody else think about it? Like, you just see this one. What would your strategy be for saying, I want to make a response to this daily create.
I see. You could find a photo from just the news and everywhere else. It doesn't even have to be a personal photo as well. Like the classic, everybody looking at the phones in the bus, but then it could be newspapers. Be interesting if they
Yeah,
could replace it with something.
Yes,
could
actually
be.
reminded me of a photo I saw, I think on Facebook one day, about a grandmother and teenagers attending an event, and then all teenagers surrounding her were busy taking photos and videos, and she was just enjoying and watching, living the present moment without having to record this on her phone. So just basically to show that, living the present moment without you having to distract yourself with devices and whatnot, would make you enjoy the moment more, like be fully present.
Mhm.
I really
Yeah.
like that photo.
And if you ever go to, like, wherever you live, there's like famous monuments and places where people go as tourists, and you see those spots where everybody has their phones out doing their selfies, or when you're at a conference and people have all their phones out to get the QR code. Um,
Yes.
Tricky.
True, but I do completely understand with social gatherings, for example, I would be the kind who puts the phone away when I'm in a social gathering or an outing or a family's visit or whatnot. Sometimes I don't have the phone with me or it's on the side, not really reachable, so that I can actually spend quality time with those I'm with. But it is something concerning nowadays.
One of
Absolutely.
the things that came to my mind as you said this, Yalia, as a what this daily create could do for a classroom exercise is to ask students to look around them during the day for moments where someone is using a phone instead of being in the present moment or taking or having conversations with people, and then to recreate that moment and create that photo without the phone.
Yeah,
And then to use it as a way to spread awareness about look at the social, the social situations and the social joy that we're missing out on because of our focus on just taking photos or checking our phones.
True, that's a very good
and it's kind of
idea, Maha.
Yeah, it's a great assignment. I would do that if I was teaching. And it's
Mhm.
awkward. Like when you ask people
Yeah.
to do that, because they have to imagine, the device, and so I think it's a moment, and they're gonna have to be in that pose for a little bit of time, and thinking about, what am I doing? Like, is this like it is when I'm naturally holding my phone? And because we don't really think too much of it, it's just an instinct to, pick this
Yeah.
up and do this. So I love those ideas to ask people to recreate it. Um, and you get
And
into some
also,
things when, yeah,
Alan, if I may, also with
please.
mindless scrolling.
Mhm.
Just
Yeah,
scrolling, like what a waste of time. And then
yeah,
without you realizing all of a sudden, what? That was a complete utter. So for me personally, I switch off the internet intentionally when I'm like concentrating and doing something, like in a state of flow, for example, to keep all distractions aside and then just have some, time dedicated for this phone, I don't know, answering WhatsApp messages or emails or whatever, but not to be accessible the whole day. Otherwise, it's just, uncontrollable sometimes.
absolutely. And I had a couple days last week where I was outside working in my yard, but I just decided not to carry the phone, and because it's such a natural reflex to say, "Oh, I can
Right.
text in 2 minutes," or "What's going on?" And it's not. And there's something very positive, like if there is like someone who's messaging you, it could be really important, or it could be like, um, I have my friend Todd. He calls me randomly on the telephone, and like I don't want to miss his call. Like it's a wonderful thing to do. So there are very sincere human things that we do. Not It's not always the time wasting scrolling. um, the other flip side is to do what I did here, to remove the technology digitally. And there are some AI tools that can actually do that pretty good. I actually went in because I like dabbling in Photoshop, and I did it manually. And so sometimes when you're actually doing it like at the pixel level, um, I mean, I'm thinking about like what's happening here. Not as much about trying to make it perfect, but for me, that's part of the process that's important in the doing of it myself, and not as much. And I do use some AI editing tools in my image. I'm not a purist, but I find that I get more satisfaction when I do my own compositing and mixing of images. But the way Aliyah and Maha you've described as a task for people to observe around them how people are using their devices, and then again that's the noticing part of the world that I always found valuable.
Alan, this reminds me of something you were saying earlier in the session today about creation, and the statement of like everybody's an artist is not helpful. And I was thinking about, in relation also to AI generated art, and thinking about art as a form of expression of a message that you want to pass on, either just to get it out of your system or to give it to others. And in that sense, you don't need to be an artist to have a thought that you want to express, right? It's just that artists know how to express their thoughts in ways that are especially meaningful or impactful. But the rest of us still have something we want to express, and sometimes it doesn't have to be as beautiful or as imaginative as an artist's, but like anything we do is still meaningful.
And it's actually more fun to do it badly. Like sometimes I just deliberately do it poorly. And I had a student when I taught, and John, I remember him distinctly. He would do the opposite of everything I wrote as an instruction for the thing, just to kind of poke fun at me. But it was still a creative process to do it the complete opposite, and that's a valid response in my book.
Very cool. Thanks, Alan.
Well,
Cool.
you can, and the other thing about the daily, you don't have to do today's daily create. There's 5,200 of them.
Or scroll back in the Discord as well, and you might see some. Oh, I like that. I missed it. And
well, there's something else here that I will.
Random.
There's random. So there's a link that will just pull up one of the random 52 100s. And
yeah,
I love that. Some of them are like I get are terrible, but
this is hilarious.
People have done these things where they try to dress like these surroundings, and that is really creative when you think about it. Like, what does it take? Because this guy had to know the color scheme of this train and said, "I'm going to match it." And like, where did she find the right blouse for the hotel hallway? But that's insanely creative. And what you do may not match this, but it's like the fun of thinking about what does it take to find clothes to match a surrounding that you can set up. So I love the random.
The random button's awesome.
And just because it's fun. Yeah. And if you're looking if you just don't know what you feel like doing, hit that link a couple times and go to it. There is one of my favorite people I've got to meet through this work. He's in Scotland. He's a retired elementary school teacher, John Johnson. He just comes up with these creative little web things that are just vivid imagination. So he came up with this one, and it's kind of weird. It pulls a random daily create. Well, let's hope it works. And what it does is here. I have to check my sharing settings. Let me stop. I don't know if I clicked the sound button because it's important to hear the sound. So let me just share again. I always forget.
We all do, Alan.
Click the right button. Share the sound. See, I didn't have it shared. So again, this one will pull up a random daily create, and when you click the button.
TDC 5269 DS106 Daily Creek Kurt Vonnegut suggested semicolons are for old people. Create something that makes them more hip. The clever one wrote, when Hemingway killed himself he put a period at the end of his life. Kurt Vonnegut once said, old age is more like a semicolon. Write something that uses semicolons in a modern way. Study first how to use a semicolon. The most feared punctuation on earth. From the old...
Now, I'm going to stop this.
Awesome.
To me, this gives appreciation what it means to have a website read to you. And I know
Hmm.
they're not all necessarily in that voice, but like to think about this is the way that you have to navigate. It's important. And so this one is showing um, what Johns did to create this, which is interesting. And he has a little link to the actual assignment itself, and you can actually
Yeah.
copy the link. So every time you reload this one, it gives you a random daily create that it reads to you in this terrible robotic voice. So I can see an assignment where you actually have to get the prompt in this audio format and try to figure out what to do. To
Hmm.
me, that would be putting yourself in the shoes of someone who has to rely on the web being read to you by computer voices. Um, so I find that interesting, and I hope that we can get that one in the chat. Um, the slides will be shared. There are ones if sometimes it's better to get a variety of sample of ones that involve different media forms. Again, there's like a gazillion of them. So I have to tell you what the best thing to do is to create. And this is what I would have my students do after they had a couple of weeks of doing the daily creates that the website provided, is to create your own. Okay, so you can make up something that you want to challenge people to do, or a little creative exercise, and it can be just like show me a picture out your front door or something like that. It doesn't have to be complex. And you basically submit it through a form, and it goes into the website, and in a couple days it will appear in the rotation. So when you actually see your daily create come up, and this is brilliant for my students when it happened, and they saw other people do them, it was really remarkable. And so I actually find creating the prompts more fun almost than doing them. So that's my pitch. Uh, and I thank everybody for sticking around and going with the random format, and hope that maybe
Thank
you're
you, Alan.
inspired. And then if you can gently arm twist, like I've been badgering Ken for a couple weeks now, and he's going to give
For
in.
years, Alan, for years.
And on the other hand, I don't expect people necessarily
No,
to be their
no.
thing to do. And there are people who
The
do. We heard daily journal.